What's up, everybody? Joe Fortin here. Welcome back to the channel. I'm gonna pose a question for you guys, and I just want everybody to think about this, especially the men on my channel, because this is kind of going to be directed towards men. If you had a daughter, what kind of guy would you want her to date? Just really think about this. What kind of guy would you want your daughter to date if you had a daughter? Would you want to see her with someone who treated her well, someone who really cared about her, with someone that showed her on a daily basis that he honored her and respected her? Or would you want her to be with somebody who was apathetic and, just didn't really show her any respect and, maybe was kind of an asshole, that kind of thing? What would you want for your daughter? And I realize that some of you may not have children. I don't actually have children, but I can put myself in that position, and I know what kind of guy I would want my daughter to date, right? I have a sister, right? And I know what kind of guy I'd like to see my sister with, and thankfully she is with a good guy, But the reason I'm asking this question is for the men out there watching to look at yourselves, right? This is something that I've been doing, right? I've spent a lot of time self-reflecting and looking at the type of guy that I've been, right? And, I talk a lot about the twin flame concept and that dynamic and things like that. And, one of the things that is abundantly clear about that concept and about that experience, about that journey, is that you go through an alchemical transformation, right? And so twins take on the templating of their bloodline, of the people around them they spend a lot of time with, of the people that they've dated, right? And everybody does this to a degree, but twins do this to a very, very high degree, right? And then what happens is they get shown an energetic mirror that makes it impossible for them to not see that part of themselves, their shadow, right? And so as a result of being on this journey, I have had to really, really look at myself, and I've had to really do a lot of soul searching. And, one of the things that I've been thinking about is just that, I've always had this sort of inner sense, right, that, for example, chivalry was something that was really important, right? And being honorable, right? Having integrity, being respectful of people to the best of my ability, right? And I have certainly made my mistakes, and I've made quite a few of them right on my YouTube channel, as part of the the growing pains and the growth process, right? But I want you guys to just think about why these things exist, right? And think about how you, I want you to think about what kind of woman you want. When I think about the type of woman that I'd like to be with, I want her to be like a queen, and I want her to be a strong woman. And personally, I'd like to have a woman who's kind of like a little bit of a warrior like me, and someone who's intelligent, someone who's capable, someone who gets after it and goes after their dreams, right? And, someone who would be capable of, raising children in a way that is conducive with my values, right? And values are extremely important when, you're looking at people to potentially date, right? So I don't do casual dating. I'm looking for commitment. I'm looking for something serious, and I'm willing to wait until that happens, right? But what I realized in thinking about the attributes of the type of woman I'd like to be with is that in order to have that type of woman, and in order to have that really beautiful relationship, in order to have all of these things that I want, in order to have a peaceful, prosperous life, right? I've got to be the type of man that is capable of attracting that woman and who is capable of being a good man within that relationship and being faithful, right? Being loyal, being honorable, right? And being respectful to her. And for me, what that really means is being a gentleman with her to the best of my ability, right? And in congruence with the times that we live in. But with that being said, at the same time, there's been a great moral degradation that has taken place, especially in the last 30 or 40 years. And there's just a lot of it that I don't agree with. I don't agree with a lot of the things that people say. I'm more of a traditional guy, and I believe in, sort of traditional ideas of like chivalry and those sorts of things, right? And so, I was jogging yesterday, and I was just thinking about this, when I'm, if I'm with any woman, I will, hold the door for her and, carry things for her and do things like that, right? And if I'm with a woman that, I'm courting, right, that I'm, dating, right, I try to go the extra mile, right? Open the door for her. Like, I will walk around, in my truck, she's in the passenger seat. I will walk around and open the door for her, right? I'll carry things for her. I will pull her chair out for her. I will, do all of these things, right? And a lot of people look at this as like antiquated and like archaic and things like that. But I don't see it that way. I see that as acting like a good man. And I want to talk about like why I believe in doing these things. And like I said earlier in the video, I want a strong woman. I don't want to, be with someone who's weak and incapable and incompetent, right? Those are not things that I want. I don't want someone that I can control either. And if I started to become controlling, I would actually want a woman that could stand up to me. I want somebody who can challenge me intellectually, right? I want someone who's got a high IQ, and a lot of men are intimidated by that, but that's what I actually want. But let me just clear something up that, I was thinking about, right? A lot of people have this idea that the reason men want to do that for women is because they think that they're weak, right? And they think that they can't do it for themselves. And there are women out there, not many that I've seen, I'm going to talk about this in a moment, but there are women out there who get offended by that, right? And what I want to say is that any of these things that, a man will do for a woman is not because he thinks she can't do it for herself. It is not because he thinks she's weak. It's because he loves her and he respects her. And that is a means of showing her that. It is also a means of being a protector, right? A provider. Those are things that I see as the man's duty in a relationship, right? And even if I'm with a friend, right, it's the same thing. If I'm with a friend who's a woman, right, I want her to feel safe with me. And if we're going to be objective and realistic, and like, Jordan Peterson talks about this stuff, if we're going to be objective and realistic, right, on average, this does not go for everyone because there are outliers in any statistical analysis, but generally speaking, there are physical threats and things that can happen in life that a man is more physically capable of dealing with in general, right? That's not to say that there are not, women who are very capable of doing these things. And it's not to say that there are men who are not capable of doing these things. Those are both true. But in general, this is the case. And again, I'm more of a traditional guy, right? And what I'm going to tell you is that also we see all these things in the media, right, on social media, about people having gripes about these things, right? And, like we have this collective consciousness, like idea, right, that, women don't want that, right, because that's what we're being told in the media. But I'm going to tell you from my personal experience, every woman that I've ever been with, dated, whatever, has pretty much I mean, not, I'm going to give another little tidbit here after, but they appreciate it. They realize that, I'm just trying to be a man in the relationship, right? I am trying to be respectful. I'm trying to show them that I care about them, right? That's really what I'm doing. And honestly, most of the women that I know, they love it when you do stuff like that for them. And what I'm going to say is that there are a lot of them, who can't handle being treated well like that. And it's sad, but I'm not talking right now about the women who have get triggered and get angry because they feel like, they feel like you're sending a message that they can't do it and that they're weak. I'm not talking about those women. I'm talking about women that will allow it, but it makes them uncomfortable. It makes them really uncomfortable when you treat them well. And the reason why it makes them really uncomfortable when you treat them well is because they don't believe that they deserve it. They don't believe that they deserve to be treated well. And there's an incongruence there. And so when you treat them well, right, they don't know how to handle it, right? It makes them really uncomfortable. And this comes from trauma. And what this often comes from actually is the parenting, the relationship in the home when they were young, right? If the father was abusive and didn't treat the mother well, that's their model, right? And so they're going to tend to date men that are like him. It also depends on the templating that we pick up, in our first few relationships, right? And this is something that I've been clearing a lot because, I had a tendency to date women who, I'm not here to bash anybody, but I had a tendency to date women who were very apathetic about the relationship with me. It's really not what I wanted, right? But it was what I was attracted to. And so, part of doing the work on like the twin flame journey, for example, and just for anyone, self-actualization in general, part of doing the work in becoming the type of person that attracts the type of relationship that you want is looking at all of that unconscious templating and looking at like what you're attracted to, the types of people that you're attracted to and why, right? And when you start to realize that like, oh, the reason I'm attracted to that type of woman is because, I wasn't treated very well when I was young. I went through a very abusive relationship. And it's the case for me, right? Extremely abusive relationship for my first relationship for, 2 years when I was 15 years old. So, what that does, it sets up these schemas and these essentially like archetypes, which I've talked about, like, check out my video on the Jezebel spirit, right? I'll post a link. It sets up an archetype where you actually can be basically possessed by this demonic energy that makes you addicted to something like a succubus, right? And, this is not, again, it's not pointing fingers at anybody, but, this is something we all need to collectively look at, right? And, I think that in the future, with what's going on right now with the global awakening and the consciousness shift, I think that we're all going to be moving towards like that harmonious union divine template. The twin flames have come in and are doing the work of taking on the templating, transmuting the energy, right? And essentially modeling, but not necessarily just in the physical, but modeling in the the collective consciousness, right? They're opening up the gateways for real love to exist on this planet again. And the true love, right, which actually comes from a higher dimension, it's heart-based, right, has been extremely rare on this planet, right? It has happened a few times, like the relationship between like Jesus and Mary Magdalene, for example. That was a twin flame relationship, right? But this is the vibration of the template that's being brought in. And, part of that is being good to each other, right? And there's a lot of like dating advice from dating coaches that are men out there who are teaching things like, well, basically you have to ignore her and you have to act like you don't care and like you have to do this and do that, right? Which objectively does work at the vibrational level of existence that they are playing the game in. But if you want a truly high vibration relationship that is heart-centered, right, that is, like along the lines of a twin flame relationship, along that template, when they're balanced, of course, right? The beginning is really hard because you're purging. But if that's what you want, there has to be respect on the part of the men. There has to be chivalry. You do need to be a gentleman. Like, you do need to be kind to her. You do need to embody, essentially virtue, right? And this is going to run contrary to a lot of like what's taught out there, right? I've got a book called The Rational Male by, I think it's Rollo Tomasi. And in terms of the average relationship on this planet right now and in this society, the information is correct, but it's coming from a place of separation. It's coming from, it's designed for people who are still in soul fragmentation, right? And who still are programmed with a high level of trauma. And, the men still have unresolved mother wounds that they're carrying around, and the women still have unresolved father wounds that they are carrying around. And essentially what they're doing is they're finding a way to sort of balance that while retaining that dysfunctional templating, right? It's like they've taken a dysfunctional template and they have improved it to a great degree to the point where it can be sort of functional, but it's really not a reflection of true love and a heart-centered relationship. And that is what people in the twin flame community are looking for. That's what we're headed towards, right? It takes time, right? And the person that you think is your twin flame right now, it may not end up happening with that person. But I can guarantee you, if you have that heart's desire and you don't quit, like if you keep doing the work, keep doing your healing work, keep doing the soul integration work, right? Keep meditating, keep doing these things, right? Keep putting the effort in. Eventually, you will get to that place and you will attract someone who's capable of having that relationship with you. And there's nothing wrong with wanting this. It's not effeminate. It's not girly. It's not, it's not weak. Really, I think that it's, especially like as a man, saying that you want this and being able to be vulnerable and being able to say, you know what, like this is really what I want. I think that's actually a position of strength, right? Because there are so many people, because there's so much in the collective consciousness, that tells you you're weak, that will make fun of you, that all these things that will degrade you in some way, to stand up and actually say, this is what I want, requires a great deal of strength. I was really scared to make my YouTube channel, and one of the reasons why I was so combative in the first year and a half or so was because I felt threatened because of what I was saying, right? And now I've gotten to the point where, I realized that a lot of that was a mirror and that I was putting that energy out there and it was coming back. But, my fears were not completely unwarranted and invalid. I mean, there are a great deal of men who would watch this video, for example, or watch my channel and, think that, I don't know, they'd probably say I'm a pussy or I'm an idiot or, I don't understand how women work. Actually, I do. I understand psychology to a very great degree. Watch my channel. And I also understand that the reason why most women work that way is because they're carrying around programming and trauma, right? And someone who's truly awake, right? Someone who's truly on the path of the heart and the twin flame journey, who gets rid of all that programming, is not going to operate that way. Period. It's that simple. So, I know that what I'm seeking is out there. And I'm going to have it. Because I've asked for it. Ask and you shall receive. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. And be more on this topic. We're going to dive deep into, chivalry and being a gentleman, things like that. So, Have a good night, everyone.
If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button down below and click the icon to your left to subscribe. New content every week about spirituality and addiction from myself, Joe Fortin. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time.